Whoa, 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 whoa.
What's the problem?
This
What's the matter?
This is not a Jet show.
So what?
So how about this?
Manning lobs it. Boris alone. Touchdown, New York.
Oh, come on. I don't want to hear this.
Why not? Super Bowl champions.
Doesn't matter. I just don't want to hear it.
What do you want to hear?
How about some Mets?
Hey, if I can find one good thing that happened to the Mets, here we go.
Home run. Mike Piazza. And the Mets lead 3-2.
Oh, yeah. It's got to be, I'm sorry. We all can't be like the Yankees.
Oh, speaking of.
This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home run. Don Mattingly.
No. God, I can't believe I just said that. All right, well, listen. How about a little Nets?
If I have to.
Hit the jumper to win it. He got it.
I can't take it. I can't take it anymore. It's been a second. I can't take it. How about some Knicks?
Oh, yeah, big spenders. Can't win a playoff.
Fair enough.
Houston pops out up top, down the lane, running jumper, off the front rim, and in!
I guess we should talk a little hockey, no?
People even watch hockey anymore?
They watch the Rangers!
Well, if you have the Rangers, you gotta have some violence.
Yeah, no, they didn't have a YouTube in the 80s.
All right, let's get the show started.
Here we are, polar opposites.
Hello and welcome to the Polar Opposites show here on Strong Island TV. You can also hear us on Spreaker. You can hear us on iTunes. You can hear us on iHeartRadio. And you can also hear us on TuneIn. And you follow us on the Twitter at Polar Opposites 1. I'm Matt Stevens. Alongside me, as always,
is Craig Moffat.
And Craig!
Matty, how you feeling, man?
Oh, man, listen. The Eagles are still Super Bowl champions, so terrible. Let's see what else is happening. The Knicks are crumbling beneath us. Kristaps Porzingis it's like he got shot. Did you see it?
I saw
It
the
was
way
brutal.
his knee buckled.
Brutal.
We'll talk about that a little bit later.
You know, when he was having a good game, he had blocked Tunko, whatever his name is, the Greek Freak twice.
Greek Freak.
He
We'll just-
slams over him.
We'll just call him Giannis.
Giannis Antetokounmpo. I'm going
But-
to attempt that name again.
Why is this day so important today, man?
Because today, the Yankees pitchers and catchers reported, the Mets yesterday pitchers and catchers. We had both managers talk to the media for the first time today.
I was going to say the Olympics, but
Does anybody watch the Olympics? You know what the Olympics are? And this is like, and listen, I'm not saying sports fans don't watch the Olympics, right? I'm not saying they don't, because I think they do.
Yep.
But to me, the Olympics is the time for people who don't watch sports to watch sports, and the people who do watch sports to take a break. This is my break, right?
and to be hopelessly devoted to their countries. Of course.
Yes, of course, yes, because, patriotism and whatnot is all wrapped up in gold, and we're going to make millions and millions off this, but we're not going to pay these amateur athletes, but we're going to keep the money.
We got a lot to do, not a lot of time to do it. The number to call is 516-945-9099. If you want to get on the phone, talk Yankees or Mets, Giants or Jets, Knicks or Nets, or anything that's on your brain.
Why you would want to
Sports
talk
related.
about most of those teams, we don't know, but hey, call us anyway.
So where do we begin? We begin with baseball. Obviously, spring training officially started, well, for some teams yesterday, other teams today, more teams tomorrow. We'll get into our MLB previews as the weeks go on.
It's delicious.
By division. The funny thing about this year, though, is it's tough to really kind of gauge a lot of the teams because nobody's really made significant moves outside of like a few here and there. But there's still a lot of guys out there still unsigned.
Yeah,
As of today, as teams are reporting, including, obviously the elephant in the room, J.D. Martinez, Jake Arrieta,
Yep.
Greg Holland is another one, Lance Lynn is another one. I mean, these are guys that would have been signed months ago.
Yeah.
And they're still not signed as of today. Even guys that are normally would be getting minor league deals, there haven't been a lot of those guys either getting signed.
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of unprecedented, I think, for a free agent year.
Yes, of
for an
course.
off season where some of the top guys in the league, top free agents. Now, this wasn't the greatest free agent class. It definitely won't be it's not as nearly as good as next year's will be with Bryce Harper and Machado. And even if Harvey has a good season, Harvey could become one of the top pitchers on the market next year. But it's just unprecedented how these guys are still.
Can I just say something real quick? Harvey could go 33-0, and I still wouldn't sign him to a contract.
Well, you wouldn't,
Okay.
but other teams
Yeah, that's
probably
fair.
would.
Here's what I'll say, right? So, like, a couple of things happened this offseason that were crazy, right?
Right.
So you had the Yankees and the Dodgers trying to get under the tax threshold.
Sure.
Therefore, they're not spending money because they're trying to get under this threshold. So next year they can go hog wild in the next couple of years and spend as much money as they want.
And for a while, though, that was something that wasn't really a big deal like a few years ago. A lot of teams were spending money to an extent.
Right, but if you were over it this next year, I think it like jumps up to like 50% of your payroll. So if you go back under it, it resets. So the Yankees have been talking about this for like 5 years, about doing this, getting
Right.
under this cap. But I think, but it's that, but it's also the thing that a lot of people aren't talking about is you had the unexpected fire sale of the Marlins cut into that. And that killed JD Martinez's market right there,
Sure.
right? Because you had teams that were able to just trade for guys instead of shelling out millions and millions of dollars. I mean, the Yankees did via trade, but you got Christian Yelich, you got Marcell Ozuna, you got those guys that were just and D. Gordon is going to play center field for the Mariners. So those guys all traded, and that killed JD Martinez down to basically two teams.
But to the
Red
point
Sox
now,
and the Diamondbacks.
and to the point now where the Red Sox have actually lowered their offer.
Well, we don't
I
really
mean,
know. The rumor was that the deal that was offered was 5 years, 125. What I heard today, the Red Sox says they're standing pat on their offer, which is 5 years, 100.
Okay.
What I don't know is, was the initial report accurate or was it not accurate? And the amount all the time was 100.
But then on top of that, you have reports that haven't been shot down regarding Eric Hosmer getting 7-year offers from the Royals and Padres. Now, those are two teams that you're not really excited about, I guess, if you're Eric Hosmer. Maybe you go back to Kansas City.
No, but if you have a choice between Kansas City and San Diego, you stay in Kansas City, right?
Well, I don't know, and that's the weird thing about it, because the Royals aren't really going to be very good next year. They already lost Lorenzo Cain. They're probably going to lose Moustakas. They have really little to no pitching.
But you're going to go out and play against the reloaded Giants, the Colorado Rockies, who made the playoffs last year, the Diamondbacks, who made the playoffs last year, and the Dodgers, who had the best record in the league.
But if you believe in Will Myers,
Really? You're going to throw Will Myers at me?
If you believe
no, stop.
in
Just
Will
stop.
Myers, we
Stop.
believe.
Just stop.
I don't know.
Just stop. But the thing is that you also got to remember, because that division is, the White Sox and the Detroit Tigers are not going to be good.
but does he want to go back to either one of those teams? Like, if you
Well,
had a
that's all he's
7-year
got.
deal, if you had a 7-year deal on the table to go back to Kansas City, okay, and you played in Kansas City your entire career.
Yeah.
So either you're hoping another team jumps in, and that's not likely
That's
to
not
happen
gonna
now.
happen
Yeah.
now. The Mets
So
are
you're-
done. The Mets are off the table,
Yeah.
right? The only other dark horse that might have popped in here at some point was the Mets, right?
Sure.
Offering them like 50 cents on the dollar, trying to sneak in at the end. But
Or
that's
if
not gonna
if they
happen.
get him on a very short-term deal, it's almost like we were talking about it on our podcast last week with Moustakas. You would take Moustakas on a 1-year deal because you already have Gleyber Torres ready to take over. Maybe
Or
not this year.
Andujar or
yeah,
whoever.
but by next year, one of those guys is taking over third
Or
base.
Machado,
So you're not committing. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Sure.
So Moustakas is holding out for a higher, more years and more money, but he's not getting it.
No.
There are no teams offering that type of money right now.
Which is why they're going to both probably end up going back to the Royals. The Yankees and Mets, so click away from that, because that's all speculation at this point. Like, nobody really knows what's going on. The players are crying foul, except they're getting offers. The problem is they're not getting offers that they like. So what we've seen this year is actually a market correction, right?
Yeah.
Because somebody like JD Martinez shouldn't get more than 5 years, 100 million. The idea that he was looking for 200 million or whatever the hell he was looking for off of one season is what the hell the problem was with major league contracts before that. They're seeing a market correction, and you're actually seeing that tax threshold, which is what they intended it to be all the time, was a non-cap cap.
Yeah.
And it's working perfectly.
And that's the thing. Like, but you also have teams currently with contracts that nobody wants. Like, I'm going to use the Yankees for an example, like a guy like Jacoby Ellsbury.
Sure, yeah, of course.
Okay, Jacoby Ellsbury. Now, maybe at the time the contract seemed like a good deal. I mean,
No, it never seemed like a good deal. But I
it
get what you're
depends who you
saying.
talk to.
Yeah,
It depends
I
who
get
you
what you're
talk
saying.
to.
I get what you're saying.
Some Yankee fans will hate it, but others were like, "Oh, we got Jacoby Ellsbury from the Red Sox,"
Right.
and he did not play up to that contract for the most part. And at this point, the Yankees aren't going to trade him, and Jacoby Ellsbury has a full no trade. So those are deals that teams. Those are the kind of deals that teams want back. They don't like. Do you think the Angels would still want Albert Pujols to this day?
You think the Mariners would still want Robinson Cano?
See
Now,
what I
he's
mean?
still in the early
So-
years of that contract, so it's not that bad yet, but you're
So
right.
just like you said, it's
Yeah.
a market correction. There are plenty of teams out there that have contracts that are untradeable. Robinson Cano is an untradeable contract. Albert Pujols, I don't know how many years he has left on his deal, but it's almost done. But still, at the Reds right now, it's an untradeable
But this
deal.
is on the players union. Okay, because you guys got to negotiate this better. 6 years of control by your team is too many years. It's too many. It should be 3. It should be 3. Once you get called up to the major leagues, it should be 3. Because what's happening now is they're calling guys up much later. Jacob deGrom is a prime example of this. When Jacob deGrom becomes a free agent, he's going to be 30. He's going to be 30. So if he becomes a free agent at 27, which is 3 years before 30, he gets a 7-year contract. 200, whatever.
Nowadays,
put whatever the dollars are in there.
nobody,
but at 30, he's getting maybe a 4, maybe.
Yeah, and nobody's going to pay for anybody over the age of 30 now.
Not
And
anymore.
especially now, if this market has proven anything, it's that any player 30 or over is not going to get that kind of a deal. Like maybe a pitcher like Darvish just got a 6-year deal, but you haven't seen those being shelled out by many.
But they got
many
6
teams.
years, and he probably took $5 million less than he wanted. The other thing too is you can tell guys, and anybody who wants to call conspiracy and say it's not. Steroids aren't out of the game, but you're seeing a lot less guys be really good at 36, 37, 38, 39. Then you might have a good month, they might have a good couple months, but you're not seeing consistency like you did with Bonds and you saw with those guys.
Yeah.
You want to do a little Yankees and Mets real quick?
Let's do the Yankees Mets. So basically what we're going to do is, I mean, both teams just got to spring training,
Yeah,
so there's
there's
a lot.
nothing really.
Listen, we know what each team is going to be this year. I think we pretty much, get that. The Mets might be a little bit more of an enigma because right now they have the possibility of making some noise in the NL East because the NL East can be fairly weak.
Yes.
The Phillies aren't going to be
Yes.
that good. The Phillies have only made one signing, and that was Carlos Santana, plus new manager in Gabe Kapler. The Braves really kind of made, the only big deal they made so far this offseason was making that huge trade for Kemp, where they traded Kemp to the Dodgers and got back McCarthy and a few other guys. They wound up cutting Adrian Gonzalez, who went to the Mets. The Marlins have completely it's like a dumpster fire there right now in Miami. Because pretty much at this point, they've cut everybody, and you have no idea who's going to be on the team opening day.
Except Starlin Castro, sadly.
Yeah.
That poor dude, man.
Either you'll see
if the Yankees win the World
here it
Series.
is, Real
oh,
Muto,
poor
like
guy.
Real Muto, Starlin Castro, and again, I don't know because I don't even know who's in their rotation right now.
Dontrell Willis?
No.
He's not in there anymore?
No, it's the Asian pitcher from the Orioles, Chen.
Bruce Chen?
No, not Bruce Chen.
Is that dude's still pitching, right?
He's
Bruce
not
Chen's
still
still pitching.
He's not still
Can somebody
pitching.
please call us or text us at Paul Robinson's one?
Wei-Yin
Is
Chen.
Bruce Chen still pitching? Because I think he is. I think he's pitching for not the Royals. It's some team though. I'm guaranteed.
But I mean, they traded Gordon, they traded Yelich, they traded Ozuna.
Yeah, everybody's gone.
During the season last year, they traded a guy like Hechavarria, who was a shortstop for years. So this is.
It's not a winnable division.
I think it's a
but they
winnable
should-
division, and I think they can. I think they can beat the Nationals to an extent. I don't think the Nationals have been really good, mainly because the rest of the division's been weak. But
yes,
but for the most part, I think this is a division the Mets can take. But I also think too many things have to break right for them, and I think it has to be either. The pitchers have to pretty much stay healthy for the majority of the season. If they go on the DL for like a week or two, it's one thing. But if they miss any more than like a month to 2 months, the Mets could be screwed right now. So in that sense, on top of that, you have a new manager, Mickey Callaway. You have a new pitching coach in Dave Island. And this is going to be a year where you have Jay Bruce, you have Adrian Gonzalez. You have, this is going to be a year without David Wright. You have Todd Frazier, who was a great signing for them. The only thing I really worry about is when is Conforto coming back? Do you take your time with him? Do you basically, right now they're saying he may not be back until May to start the season. And it was the most flukiest of injuries, man.
I've never seen anything like that.
I've never seen anything like that.
I've never seen anything like that.
And the crazy thing is, I was at that game.
Oh yeah,
I was
happened
at
to
that
be
game.
watching that. Randomly, I flipped over to the Mets because I'll watch the Mets. I don't hate the Mets, and I saw that and I was like, that literally is the most Mets thing to ever happen.
Yeah,
it's amazing stuff.
So with Conforto in center field, you're going to have, Cespedes in left. Cespedes has always had the nagging Achilles stuff going on for the past year or so.
Here's the thing about Cespedes. If the Mets are good, Cespedes will be healthy and will play hard. If the Mets are bad, he will come up with an injury and he will miss the season. Okay, that's Cespedes. There you go. That's his season. If the Mets start out hot, Cespedes will be on fire, smoking. If the Mets start out cold, oh, my quad, oh, my Achilles, oh,
my pancreas.
Yeah, oh, my liver. Unbelievable.
So,
but I was thinking about this today, right? Because I'm thinking about how we can make the Mets better, right? Mm-hmm. Since they're not going to go out and sign free agents, I think about how we can make the Mets better. And I think there's an American League East team that might be able to help them. And I think this team is going to be in fire sale mode by the middle of the season.
The Orioles?
Yes.
Yeah, I could definitely see the Orioles being in.
Adam Jones would be a perfect fit for the Mets. Perfect fit.
I like Adam
for the
Jones.
Mets.
And I think what's funny about him is in Baltimore, it's not that the novelty's worn off. It's just that they've had him for so long, and they've literally gone nowhere.
Right.
I mean, they made that trade. That was a fleecing of a trade.
Oh, it was a great trade.
That was the Bedard trade, where they traded Bedard to Seattle, and they got Jones. And I think they got a.
Is Bedard still in the
No,
major
he's
leagues?
not. No, he's been out of the league for years.
He's not
But-
even relieving somewhere?
No.
Okay.
Right. But even when he got to Seattle, he started getting the elbow problems,
Right.
and he just wasn't effective as a starter. Now, at the time, the deal wasn't that bad because Bedard was in his prime.
He was considered
as
to be
starter.
going to be
He
a
was
good pitcher.
Yeah. And then just when he got to Seattle, it just kind of fell apart. I remember they got Jones, and they got a couple of other guys that were huge for Baltimore. But then since then, though, the Orioles really haven't done much. I mean,
Because they don't have pitching. And so, like, the Orioles might go into the season with their third, fourth, and fifth starters having a combined like 23 starts, which is insane. Especially since their top two starters aren't Sale and somebody else. You know what I mean? It's not Sale and Kershaw leading off. You know, it's Dylan Bundy.
Yeah.
You know, so
Dylan Bundy. Wow.
So
Yep.
so look, but I think there's trade partners for the Mets, and I think that's how they're probably going to do it. And Adam Jones fits a lot of things for them. He's an excellent defensive center fielder. He's a very good hitter. He does have power from the right side. The thing I think about the Mets real quick is I think you can expect their pitching staff to be good if they're healthy. Unfortunately, I think you can guarantee Steven Matz to be on the DL at least once for a month.
I agree.
At least.
And Wheeler, too.
Probably Wheeler, and probably.
I still think, to be honest, Wheeler should be in the bullpen.
I probably agree with that, and some of those guys will probably end up there. I do like Mickey Callaway. I do like Dave Island. Both those guys are very good at what they do. Just look at the pitching staff of the Indians, man. The pitching staff is so deep. They might go into the season with like 7 or 8 guys who could literally be starting on any other team in the league.
I was reading this article real quickly from CBSSports.com, and basically what they were doing was they were trying to pit player to team. And one guy that they thought the Mets should get on a minor league deal was Ubaldo Jimenez. And the thing with me is that while I understand why, because when Ubaldo Jimenez had his like career year in Cleveland, Mickey Callaway was the pitching coach. But to me, the problem I have with Ubaldo Jimenez is while he does provide depth, and he's not a terrible option to have as like a long reliever for a few innings, I just can't trust him. Like if my pitching staff goes down, I can't sit there and say, I got to have Ubaldo Jimenez go into my rotation. Because for every one game he pitches well, he has at least 3 or 4 where he gets killed and barely makes it out of the 4th inning. So in that sense, he might be better suited as a long reliever, but I can't really take that risk, even if it is on a minor league deal, for pitching depth. Like, while I understand, like, yeah, he was great under Callaway, that's also a few years ago. And, pitchers deteriorate over time. And the thing was, Ubaldo Jimenez was not a great pitcher to begin with. He wasn't like a Tanaka or, Syndergaard or, whoever. I mean, just throwing off some names like Scherzer or whatever. But I can't really put my faith in the guy if, God forbid, one of my pitchers goes down with an injury, and then I got to throw him in the rotation because it's almost like I feel like it's a guaranteed loss.
Yeah.
You
Real quick on the Yankees. I mean, look, what you liked today from Aaron Boone was he's not shying away from the Yankees winning the World Series type of thing. He wants the team to embrace the pressure. If you heard any of the interviews last week that they did with Didi for a couple interviews they did with the guys before they had this cancer dinner on Friday night. Well, it was a benefit thing, and
you could just say benefit.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't think of the word, and it all happened at once. But regardless of that, what you liked is that somebody asked him, "Do you expect to win the World Series?" And Didi said, "Yes, they do." Are they going to win the World Series? Nobody knows that. It's a long season, and crazy stuff happens in baseball. But the thing that you like about the Yankees this year is, 1, they've gotten better by getting Stanton, and 2, the rest of the division has gotten worse. If the Red Sox don't sign JD Martinez, they're going into the season last year with a team that was last in home runs. That's not going to get much better. The Orioles have gotten worse.
They haven't done anything.
The Rays have gotten worse.
Well, the Rays,
all right?
Is there any...
The Jays have gotten worse.
Here's a question about the Rays. Is there such a thing as being worse than where they are right now?
They finished 3rd last year in the division.
Okay, then. But I'm just saying in general, they are a team that every year makes no signings, and that's fine. And now this year traded away Evan Longoria. Now there's still talk that they might try to trade Chris Archer.
Which they should.
You know, I think the Twins are the latest team to show interest in Chris Archer. I kind of like the Twins. They seem like,
if they get Arrieta and
like
Archer, they can make
team.
a run, man. If
they seem like a sneaky team that's going to come out of nowhere at the last minute and make a splash.
They did make the playoffs last year.
No, I know that, but
you make a splash. I got.
But I mean, like, they've never been a big market team. Like, the biggest signing over the past couple of years for them was Irvin Santana, and Irvin Santana was actually pretty decent for them
last year.
I just think last year, when like in the wild card game, he just kind of ran out of gas so late in the season. If you can find the depth, or not even the depth, but just another starter to put at the top of that rotation with what you have, the Twins can definitely compete because I definitely think they have some good young hitters on that team. They have a decent bullpen. But outside of that, I mean, if you can find a way to get Arrieta under contract or find a way to trade Chris Archer, I don't know much about Minnesota's farm system, but that's a huge boost. And you'll definitely challenge for the Central because I don't think the Tigers are going to be very good. They're pretty much rebuilding this year. I mean, the Indians will still be at the top most likely with what they have because they didn't even lose a lot of players. I mean, they lost I think Brian Shaw, they lost Bruce, but I think they're going to get Encarnacion back. And then after that, who else do you have in that division? The White Sox are still rebuilding right now. And then
But that's why I think the Royals can make a run too if they wanted to, if they brought.
But the Royals have also lost a lot of hitters, though. I mean, if they look like they're not really going to. Right now, it's looking like they're not going to sign Hosmer. They're not going to sign Moustakas. They lost Kane. I mean, those are three pretty big bats to your lineup. I mean, that's pretty important. So look, as the weeks go on, we'll get into more of the Mets and Yankee stuff, and then we'll do our MLB previews. But right now, we have reached the halfway point of this episode, and Maddie, time for a little halftime. Halftime, as always, the midway point of our show. 4 topics. All opinions legal. All opinions matter.
No. No, they don't. Some people's opinions don't matter.
That's not true.
It is absolutely true.
I bet
you can still give it, but that doesn't mean it matters. And that includes mine, by the way. I'm just putting it out there.
You're so full of it.
Oh,
Don't even
my
start that.
opinion matters
You
by the least.
are the most egotist. No.
Oh,
no.
please. Just read.
No, I don't want to hear it.
Read.
Okay? My opinion doesn't matter. Yeah,
No, your opinion
no,
might
no.
matter.
You're saying.
I'm saying
you're
my
saying,
opinion
oh, that's
doesn't
even
matter.
mine. Come on, stop.
I'm just saying it. I only speak the truth.
Here we go. Number 1, as I pack up my esophagus right now. The 49ers officially locked up Jimmy Garoppolo with a 5-year, $137.5 million contract last Thursday afternoon. The deal includes $74 million in guaranteed money and $90 million in cash in the first 3 years. Garoppolo was acquired by the 49ers from the Patriots for a second-round pick and only has 7 career starts to his resume between his time in New England and San Francisco, but he's undefeated. The deal officially makes Garoppolo the highest-paid player in the league for now. Maddie, is 7 career starts enough to be labeled a franchise quarterback?
No. But we do it for guys who get drafted and who have never started anywhere. So I guess, yes, it is. It's not for me. It's not. Because in those, I think he had like 9 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. So like, yeah, your team won, but like that ratio is never going to last. It's not going to guarantee your team goes 7-0 every time. It's just not. Jimmy Garoppolo could be a great quarterback. He could be. He absolutely could be. Kyle Shanahan's the coach there, so you never know.
And you know how much we love? How much do we love Kyle Shanahan?
So who knows? But probably, right? Probably. He'll probably be good. But what are we talking about, right? Like, are we talking about Aaron Rodgers? Or are we talking about Matt Stafford? Right? Are we talking about, what are we talking about when we say good now? Right? I mean, because to me it's different levels. Right? So, yes, Jimmy Garoppolo is good, could be good, but Matt Stafford's never won anything, so who cares?
Here's what I think. First of all, the 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo is kind of the flavor of the month. The minute that he got over to San Francisco and he started winning games, it was like, he's the toast of the town. And, you know, the way they were hyping him up was like he was almost bigger than Brady to an extent because they just couldn't stop talking about how good he was. And, yeah, he put together some good games. But now the thing is that doing this over a full season next year against, you know, the Seahawks are always a tough team. The Rams are just as good now, if not better, than the Niners. And if the Cardinals find the right pieces, they're going to be they're going to be a tough out too. It's really going to depend on the kind of guys you put around him, right? I mean, because if Garoppolo can do the work, but if he doesn't have the talent around him, he's not going to be able to do much of anything. My issue, at this point, the money is kind of a moot point because all these quarterbacks are getting paid. And when free agency starts, Kirk Cousins will most likely be the highest paid player in the league because he's going to command a big salary, even though whether he deserves it or not, we don't really know. But for that point right now, I mean, I don't think the money matters because all quarterbacks are going to get paid because it's the most important position in the league to fill.
Number 2, last week there were reports the Rangers were planning on being sellers at the February 26 trade deadline, even though they were only 3 points out of the final playoff spot in the East. This week, President Glenn Sather and GM Jeff Gorton, Gorton, backed it up with a letter to all Ranger fans on Twitter saying they would indeed be a roster overhaul with a focus on adding young, competitive players that combine speed, skill, and character. Since the letter was posted, the Rangers have won 2 in a row and are only 2 points behind the Hurricanes for the second wildcard spot. Craig, is this the right message to send to the fan base for the rest of the season?
While I respect the honesty, if I was a Ranger fan, I think I'd kind of be annoyed that they're basically telling me, we're not mailing it in, but we're going to try to ship out everybody. Now this season's kind of been hasn't been good for the Rangers in general because it's the same team. I don't know if it's a case of just they're getting a little bit older, even though they're a pretty young team with guys like Zibanejad, Buchnevich, and a few other guys. But at the same time, you have Rick Nash, who's another year older and hasn't been very good. Chris Kreider, even before the issues he had with the blood clot, we always talked about it a few times. He just seemed always overrated to me. And how many times has Henrik Lundqvist been pulled from games this year just from bad play? I mean, his
overall play's been good, right?
Here's the problem I have with Lundqvist in general. I'll never forget what he did for them in the past years. He was a lights-out goaltender. But he has had a lot of bad games. But the minute he has a good one, everybody wants to call him the king again. When he has a bad game, he barely makes it out of the first period a lot of times. I don't know if that's age, if it's just the talent around him. I don't know what it is. I kind of understand what the Rangers are doing, but at the same time, you're only 2 points out of a wild card spot. And the thing is, when the Rangers are in the playoffs, they are a tough out. They can be a tough out. Lundqvist kind of flips a switch.
Isn't it better to maybe break it down a year early?
I have no problem with what
process in a year early than to wait.
I have no problem with what they're doing, but if you're a fan of the team, you're going to probably hate it because you're going to be like, well, what's the point then if they're just going to lose out? And I'm not saying they're like going to.
Maybe they still make the playoffs like this, and it's even better.
Now think about it. Ever since they made the announcement, they haven't made any moves,
right?
And they basically won a few games, and they're still in it. But there's also a lot of teams. There's a lot of traffic in the Metro, within like a 4-point difference between all the teams. So it could go either way. I see what they're doing, but they just may not be able to get enough for what they're going to get at the trade deadline because they're just not. It's just, if guys are rentals, they're not going to get a lot for that. They might be able to get some draft picks. But other than that, I don't really see outside of McDonough, Zuccarello, Zibanejad, and maybe Nash. You really don't have much else to trade. You're not trading Lundqvist, so. Number 3.
Hockey.
Hands down, my favorite story, probably of 2018 so far, and it's only been February. A Girl Scout who was not publicly identified sold more than 300 boxes of cookies in 6 hours after she set up shop outside a pot dispensary in California. Boxes of Girl Scout cookies now go for $5 a box, which means she raised more than $1,500. There is no nationwide policy related to selling in front of pot dispensaries, although there shouldn't be because that's where the money is, right? But the organization has been wrestling with how to handle this new demand with more states legalizing the drug.
They're gonna crash the Girl Scout cookie website. It's unbelievable.
Maddie, did the Girl Scouts just discover their new target market thanks to one of their own?
Well, let's be fair. This is the second time I've heard this. The girl did it in Denver when it opened a couple years ago, but she didn't sell that many. That's California, so that's gonna do that. But look, there should just here's the thing, Girl Scouts. I'm gonna help you with this, really. Okay, I'm gonna help you. Okay, you know how in New York we have these wonderful places where you can get Baskin-Robbins ice cream and a Dunkin' Donuts donut, okay? And you can do that at the same time because those things exist in the same place. What we need to do is just start opening cookie stands, Girl Scout cookie stands, inside the dispensaries. No pot in the cookies. Those are Girl Scout cookies. But you go in and you sell them, and all the products. You guys, it would be unbelievable how many you would sell. You wouldn't have to sell in any other state. You could just sell there.
I'm sorry, but this is a future CEO
Listen,
waiting. This is a future CEO waiting to happen.
Innovative kids and smart parents, because they let them go there and do it. That's the way to do it. Go to your target audience.
Think about it. Out of all the places, like let's say if my daughter was a Girl Scout, my 5-year-old daughter was a Girl Scout, granted it's not legal in New York, but I'm saying if I lived in California,
there's medical dispensaries.
Fine.
There's not as many people go there.
But if I lived in Colorado, if I lived in California,
Yeah.
I don't even think I wouldn't even think it would come to my mind to
But
put
if
it in front of
you're-
a pot dispenser.
But if you're selling anything,
So this is genius.
Candy bars, fruits, vegetables, pies, cookie dough, it doesn't matter what you sell it for your school, sell it in front of a pot dispensary, you'll sell a lot of it. Number 4, with pitchers and catchers reporting this week, the Cubs solidified their rotation, agreeing to a 6-year, $125 million deal with Yu Darvish. The deal includes incentives that could push it to $150 million. Darvish is coming off one of his worst seasons of his career last year, with an ERA close to 4 and giving up 27 homers in 31 starts, and a collapse of epic proportions that cost the Dodgers the World Series. However, the deal reportedly includes an opt-out clause after 2 years, but that's not confirmed. Craig, does Darvish make the Cubs better or worse in 2017?
I'm not a big Yu Darvish fan. I just don't think he's as good as he used to be. I mean, he's been injured a lot, and on top of that, he's 31 now, I think?
I believe he is 30 or 31.
I don't necessarily think it makes the Cubs better. And part of me thinks it's a little bit of a panic move because the Brewers were going after him. And on top of that, the Brewers have made some pretty decent moves in the offseason, getting Yelich and getting Kane, with their hitters. And all they really needed was that, another big pitcher for their rotation. The Cubs rotation to me doesn't seem as good, especially without Arrieta there. I mean, they have Lester, they have, Darvish, they have Hendricks, who's pretty solid. But then after that, the back end to me doesn't really seem as good. I don't think Lackey's there anymore.
Also, Lester is getting
34.
older. I mean, he's almost done, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
now listen, the Cubs hitters, with Chris Bryant, Addison Russell, they'll definitely keep the team in it, regardless. And Joe Maddon's the greatest manager
ever in the history of ever. Joe Madden is the greatest. He never makes any bad decisions.
See how I set you up?
Ever.
It does not take
Not
much.
once.
It does not take much to poke the bear on this show. Anyway, look, Darvish should probably be a decent pitcher for them. I just think paying $125 million is just a little bit too much for me. I just don't think he would make my team that much better.
To me, regular season, Darvish and Arrieta kind of cancel each other out. It's going to hurt them in the postseason, but I don't think they're better than the Dodgers, nor have they thought that they're better than the Dodgers anyway, so it don't matter. And they're not better than the Nationals.
You think the Cubs are better than the Nationals?
No, I think no.
Really?
The Nationals pitching? With the Nationals pitching?
Scherzer, Gonzalez. Am I missing somebody?
Yeah, the
Roark.
Tanner Roark. Strasburg.
Sorry.
And their bullpen's good, and they can hit with them. They can hit with the gloves.
No, I think the Nationals will be a good team this year, but I think the Cubs will be just as good.
Yeah, maybe. I doubt it.
Halftime is officially over.
Boom! Nailed it.
You are watching the Polar
You are.
Opposite Sports Show
Well, you can
on
be doing
Strong
both.
Island TV. You can give us a shout at 516-945-9099. Again, 516-945-9099. If you want to talk Yankees or Mets, Giants or Jets, Knicks or Nets, or anything else that's on your brain. We got about, 20 minutes or so to the end?
Give or take. And if you want to talk about most of those teams, then I got this for you.
Or institutionalized for the rest of your life for the terminally bewildered because your mind is gone.
Thank you, Bobby Heenan.
So basically, we still have to do polar bipolar to finish out the show.
Yep.
But Maddie, we are going to do a little good idea, bad idea.
It's time for another good idea, bad idea.
Are you ready?
I am.
Okay, give me a good idea.
Good idea.
The Knicks acquiring Emmanuel Mudiay from the Nuggets.
Yeah, if your philosophy for building a basketball team is acquiring as many point guards as you can and then throwing them against the wall and seeing which one sticks, then it's absolutely a great idea. If you're then looking for good players who are good, then maybe it's a good idea because maybe he's a really good player. We don't know yet. Maybe he's one of those. But let's be fair, guys. How are you going to tell they're all good if there's not that many time in the game? You have 3 point guards that are under 25 you want to look at, and Jarrett Jack played 20 minutes last night. It's ridiculous.
And that's the thing, too, because you have Jarrett Jack, you have Moutier, you have Ntilikina, and Trey Burke, right?
Yeah.
So that's 4 point guards, and there's no way Hornacek can get those guys in the rotation. So the thing is that maybe getting rid of Jarrett Jack, or basically putting Jarrett Jack to the bench at this point, would be the smart move. But he keeps playing him like a lot of minutes.
Yeah, and it's nonsense. And here's the thing: you could play Trey Burke at the 2 while playing Moutier at the 1, because even though Burke's small, Moutier's big, so he can cover the 2 and Burke can cover the 1. It's a whole thing you can do.
But does it say something about the Nuggets giving up on Moutier to the point where it's like, well, we don't think he's going to be very good, so we're ready to just give him to you for Doug McDermott and a second-round pick?
Who knows what people think anymore, right? Who knows what Who knows what teams think anymore? First-round picks apparently don't mean as much because people are trading away for second picks. Guys drafted 2 years ago.
Give me a bad idea.
Bad idea.
The Nets doing nothing at the NBA trade deadline. I'm going to say that, yes, that is a bad idea because, to be honest, it's not that I was expecting a purge. Like, I wasn't expecting, like, an overhaul of the roster. Like, I wanted them to keep Dinwiddie. They kept Dinwiddie. Joe Harris is a nice guy off the bench, but I felt like if teams were interested in him, then I would like to try to get something for him because he's going to be an unrestricted free agent this year anyway. And he's going to command money that may not necessarily be worth it.
Right.
Like, he's a pretty decent player. He's a pretty good guy to have off the bench. But I don't think he's a guy that I'm, like, sitting there going, I need Joe Harris on my roster. The other guy, too, is Damari Carroll, who has an expiring contract next year at $15 million.
Right.
I think that would have been where you could have possibly gotten a first from a playoff contending team. Those are basically the 3 guys from that point. I mean, Dinwiddie, I would have to have been blown out of the water for a Dinwiddie offer just because I think he's been really, really good for them, especially with D'Angelo Russell slowly coming back. But I think the Nets should have, now granted they did do something. They got Dante Cunningham from the Pelicans, but he's not going to really play that much. But the fact is that I think that with a guy like Harris on an expiring deal, and a guy like Carroll going into an expiring deal, I think you could have gotten some value for either one of those guys at the trade deadline to get younger and maybe get another pick out of it at the end of the day.
Good idea.
The Cavs blowing up their roster mid-season.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Bad idea.
That's it? You got nothing?
Yes. If you
Well,
watch
first of all-
if you watch the Cavs play at all before they traded all those guys, then you knew it was a good idea. If you watch the Cavs play after, now you can't go by one game because it's all, there's adrenaline, there's nonsense. They're just younger, athletic, and they play defense. It's going to make a huge difference.
That was a bit of a stunner, like just the fact that they not only got, they traded Isaiah Thomas to the Lakers, got Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance Jr. Then they went out and got Rodney Hood, and they got George Hill. And then the only other thing they really did was trade Dwayne Wade to the Heat. And then on top of that, they kept the Brooklyn pick. So, I mean,
They got younger, they got faster, and they play better defense.
Now, here's my question, though, because I kind of thought about this, too.
Yes.
The deal for Clarkson and Nance opened up a lot of cap room for the Lakers.
Right.
To the point now where they can add 2 max players.
Okay.
Do you see them, the Cavaliers, basically kind of pushing LeBron out to L.A.? Like, with that kind of a move?
No, they don't want LeBron to leave. Their entire community is based on LeBron James. If he goes, no one else is going to Cleveland.
All right.
Right?
No, I agree. Give me a bad idea.
Bad idea.
The Clippers not blowing up their roster midseason.
Yes.
And mainly because...
Because what the hell are you doing? DeAndre Jordan, you're not building around DeAndre Jordan at 30.
And
you're
you
just
gave,
not.
And they gave Lou Williams a
You give
3-year
Lou-
extension.
Yeah, what are you doing? What is happening?
Good idea.
Good idea. Paying money to see the movie Black Panther.
Assuming you're not seeing it where I have to pay to see movies where it's like $20 a movie, it's a great idea. I'm sure it's going to be a great movie. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be the best movie ever made. Ever. That's what I've been told, so I will believe it.
What are the odds of it being overrated?
I think they're very small, to be honest
Very
with you. They usually get this stuff right. You know what I mean? Like the consensus of everybody saying it's good. I don't think it's just because it's a black superhero.
Okay.
Because I think it actually has to be that good as a black superhero movie to get this kind of praise.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
So I think it's going to be very good. I don't pay money to see movies, so I think it's insane.
Bad idea.
Paying $199 for an autograph of Lonzo Ball.
I'm going to just say this is a blanket statement.
Now here, wait,
Is that
here's
okay?
here's
Yeah.
where the story comes
Sure.
in. This week is the All-Star break, right?
Okay.
Lonzo Ball is setting up an autograph session.
Right.
You can't take pictures with him.
Okay.
and you have to pay $199 for an autograph. And if you want it authenticated,
Right.
it's like an additional $10.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay, so I'm going to still make my blanket statement because that didn't change anything. That actually made it worse. I'm going to say this. Don't pay money for anything from the balls. Anything. Shoes, water, Lithuanian basketball players. Don't pay for any of it, okay? Because he said he wants all 3 kids. His kids are like, it's insane. Don't pay for anything. Lonzo Ball's autograph isn't going to be worth $199 when he is the Kim Kardashian of the freaking basketball world.
$199.
I
Now listen,
can't.
I understand why athletes, charge to get their autographs, but $199 for a rookie?
Yeah, it's nonsense.
All right, one more.
Good idea.
Giving Johnny Manziel a shot in the CFL.
Sure. I don't watch the CFL, so yeah, go ahead. I don't care.
He's bipolar, you know that now.
I
Right?
did know. Yes, I did hear that. Right? Is that what we're saying now?
Well, basically that's what he's saying.
I believe him. Listen, you have to believe him, right? Like, you can't call the guy a liar, right?
I would
mean,
never
so-
call him a liar with something like that.
No.
However, I don't want that being used as a crutch to come back into the league.
It needs, here's the
You know?
thing. This is something that's going to take time, Johnny. We believe you, but we're still a little skeptical, if that makes sense.
If you put in
Okay?
the work, if Johnny Manziel puts in the work
Come on back.
that a quarterback should, then yes, I would like to see him back in the league and making a name for himself, even if it is as a backup quarterback.
Right.
But the thing is that he has not put in the work at all. So while I feel bad about the fact that he does suffer from bipolar disorder, because it is a very that is a tough disease to live with. The fact is, you can't. I just don't want to see it being used as a crutch for teams to be like, oh, well, if that's the case, then we'll sign you to a 1-year deal to be a backup quarterback. I'd like to see him just trying to build himself up again and overcome it to become a success again in the NFL.
Bad idea.
Giving Johnny Manziel another shot in the NFL.
Again, I think under the same circumstances, right? It's the same thing to me. If you prove that you're better, then yes, sure. If somebody wants to sign you, sign you. But I'm not going just off your word that everything's changed. I got to see change to be able to want to know if I want to bring you to my football team.
All right,
You want to do it?
let's do it.
Let's do it.
We are closing out our show, as always, with a little polar bipolar. We have 10 topics. As we said in the previous segment, anything goes, all opinions legal, all opinions matter. Right?
No.
Not even yours?
Nope.
You sure about that?
I'm sure.
Okay.
Mine especially.
Yeah, we'll talk about that again in the next show. So, Maddie, are you ready?
Ho!
All right, Maddie, here we go. Polar or bipolar number 1. Josh McDaniels pulled the ultimate douche move by backing out of his agreement to coach the Colts to stick with the Patriots.
Oh man, there might be not a more polar move in the history of polar moves than that one. Because here's the thing, like, it's fine that you backed out of the deal. What's not fine is that you took like 5 weeks to do it. There was so much time in here where you could have said, you know what, guys, I'm having cold feet. I don't want to do it. I can't do it. My family doesn't want to do it, blah, blah, blah. But you waited till the end. You waited till the end, and that's the problem.
And you
that's
committed
the
to them,
problem.
too, because,
Yes. You
because
hired
they-
assistant coaches.
He hired assistant coaches, but then on top of that, they went on Twitter, made the announcement. And then a day later, he was basically, all of a sudden,
it
he
was
went
like
back
he
to
was
the win.
channeling Bill Belichick. Number 2, the selection of Frank Reich as head coach feels like the Colts just settled just to get the position filled.
Yeah, I'm going to say polar on this one. Now, maybe it works out for them in the end because they got burned by McDaniels. I mean, sometimes karma, it just works like that. But if they really wanted Reich to begin with, now granted they had to wait until the end of the Super Bowl anyway because he was with the Eagles,
Right.
so it wouldn't have mattered. But I think this was one of those things where when McDaniels bailed on them, because they had to deal with him for weeks and he was already hiring assistant coaches, when he bailed on them, the Colts were like, what the hell are we going to do? Because we didn't really know everyone else was taken. And that's one of the downsides to waiting until the Super Bowl to hire your coach, is that you never know when things like that are going to happen. Now, they only interviewed 2 other guys, and the other guys really weren't anything special. They interviewed Leslie Frazier and Dan Campbell. Though neither one of those guys are going to probably get the job over Reich. So in that sense, it does feel like they settled. Let's hope it works out for them at the end of the day, and let's hope that Andrew Luck's shoulder doesn't fall off, because it's looking more and more likely it's going to. Number 3, polar or bipolar, Jimmy Garoppolo will only be the highest paid player in the NFL until March 12th, when Kirk Cousins signs his contract.
I'm going to say bipolar on this.
Really?
Because I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to get that big a contract. He's much older. He's got more mileage on him. I think he's going to get paid, but I don't think now the money, the guaranteed money, might be more, but I don't think the life of the contract will be more. And he might be guaranteed more a year, but I think the contract will be less years, and I think it'll be less money. Number 4, the Jets should invest $100 million in Le'Veon Bell rather than Kirk Cousins.
I'm going to say bipolar. I'm going to say pretty much neither one of these guys you should invest $100 million in.
I would agree.
Okay. Now, listen, the thing with Le'Veon Bell is like, well, I think he's the top back in the league. He's getting old. And the thing is, if you're going to invest $100 million in him, you're signing him for basically, what, 6 years, maybe even more?
Yeah,
Give or
he's gonna
take.
last
And he's
3.
not, yeah, and the thing is, the wear and tear on his body is going to really kind of take its toll by the 3rd year, like Matty just said. And the thing with Cousins is, as much as I like Cousins, and I wouldn't be upset if the Jets signed him, I just don't think I'm investing $100 million into him, though.
Right.
That's where I kind of draw the line. You know, now I don't know what Cousins is going to get, what kind of deal he's going to get, so I would say I don't want the Jets to go immediately diving into the deep end with this guy when there's a perfectly good draft with a lot of good quarterbacks that you can groom and build around for years to come. So if I'm the Jets with all the holes I have, I'm not investing $100 million in either one of these guys. Matty, number 5, polar or bipolar. It was only a matter of time before Kristaps Porzingis tore his ACL.
I don't know if I'll say polar, but I'll expand it to this. I don't know if I would say specifically the ACL, but it was only a matter of time before he missed a year for whatever reason. Whether it be like a foot with Lopez or an ACL or something, there was always going to be something. It's just the way his body is built. It's just the way it is. He's going to get injured until he maybe fills out. And maybe this is a good thing. Maybe him sitting on his keister for a couple months, resting his knee where you just feed him fat stuff so he gains weight. You know what I mean? But I mean, like, that might be right. I mean, I'm not saying do it healthier than I would do it.
What do you mean, White Castle? Or?
Right, but do it healthier than I would do it. But you know what I'm saying? This could be a good time for that to happen. So it was only a matter of time, yes.
I think it was just
Absolutely.
because every other week he had a shin injury or a leg
Right.
injury. It was always something.
Yes.
And the way he landed was really, it was
Oh,
bad.
it's brutal.
I mean,
It was a great dump, though. Number 6, the Nets have progressed in
I
their
guess if you
second.
got the most out of that, I
Yeah.
guess, you know, more.
Well, it was over at Antetokounmpo, so there you go. The Nets have progressed in their second year under Kenny Atkinson.
I'm going to say polar, and the reason why I'm going to say that is because I think that this team is better equipped this year compared to last year. And while I know they have had injuries, obviously Lynn being hurt the first game of the season, Hollis Jefferson's been in and out of games all year, so is Karis LeVert. I think this team is built to be better than what they are. And the thing that's bothering me, and I'm starting to think more, remember we talked about this with Jaleel Okafor, the conspiracy theory?
Yeah.
They're kind of keeping him down so like
Yeah.
they don't, you know. I think you have to play him at this point because he's only playing 6 minutes a game, and
nonsense. It
that's
makes no
not
sense.
really why you acquired him. I mean, you didn't acquire him and Stauskas to just sit on the bench and barely play. So now is the time to get him on the court. And if you sign him, you sign him. If you can't, you can't. But I think that, you know, all I kept hearing about is how these guys love playing for Kenny Atkinson. But right now, I'm not seeing the development. I figured they would have been a little bit better than what they are. They're getting housed like almost every game now.
Right.
They're just coming out slow after every game, and they're not. It's been bad. Last night's game against the Clippers was a perfect example. They got steamrolled for 3 quarters, and by the time they came back, it was too late. So yeah, I definitely think they've regressed in their second year under Kenny Atkinson. Number 7, Matty, polar or bipolar? Lane Johnson's recent comments about the Patriots were ridiculous.
Oh, it's absolutely polar. If you don't know what he said, he basically said he'd rather have fun winning 1 Super Bowl than not have fun winning 5. And all I can say is this is that how would you not have fun winning 5? Just because you're not allowed to act like an idiot at all times means you wouldn't be having fun winning 5 Super Bowls? Are you a moron? Well, yes, you are a moron because we've all heard you talk. So yeah, Lane Johnson, you are. But my point is this, to say that is nonsensical in every way, shape, and form. And I think it's changed from like 20 years ago to today, where I think you can win more being less.
How could you possibly say that winning 1 Super Bowl is better than winning 5?
Well, because he's an idiot and he needs a babysitter, so he wants that.
But is this also because off of the high of the Eagles winning their first ever
Yes,
Super
but all
Bowl?
they've been doing since then is just knocking all the people who were knocking them all year. When you finished 4th in the NFC East last year, so what did you think people were going to say about you this year? You finished 4th. You think, oh, the Eagles are winning the Super Bowl. They finished 4th last year. How did we not see it coming? Number 8. The last person you'd ever expect to get caught with more than 20, what was that? kilograms?
Yeah.
Holy crap. Of cocaine and heroin is former pitcher Esteban Loaiza.
This is polar because, you know, the thing is, Esteban Loaiza, when he was in the league, tend to carry himself like, you know, not really like, he wasn't a troublemaker or anything. It was like, you know, when they interview people about a, you know, a burglary or whatever, and they arrest the guy and they're like, oh, he was a real quiet guy. You know, he didn't really make any noise. And that was the kind of thing with Esteban Loaiza. This story is just crazy because it's almost like in a weird way he went from journeyman pitcher who wasn't really a terrible pitcher in the major leagues to literally like a drug kingpin, right? I mean, this is like...
He's Scarface.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, this is just one of the craziest stories, but yes, this is the last pitcher I'd ever expect. I would have
Indeed.
probably, maybe out of Odalis Perez over
No,
Esteban Loaiza.
him more than him.
Arestas Estrada?
No, just him.
Bartolo Colon?
No. Bartolo looks like he'd totally be a kingpin, a big fat guy. Come on.
Matty, number 9, polar or bipolar. When a band announces their farewell tour, they're normally never truly gone forever.
No, it's totally polar. They do this all the time. They make money off their farewell tour. How many farewell tours as the Walking Dead? They are the Walking Dead at this point. How many farewell tours is the Grateful Dead at? How many farewell tours has some of these bands had? It's ludicrous. So
Well,
no,
this
they're
year-
never really gone.
This year, Elton John announced a farewell tour.
We'll see.
Paul, it's a 3-year farewell
Yeah,
tour.
3-year farewell tour. That's exactly. Yeah, that's 3 tours, dude. That's 3 tours.
Paul Simon announced a farewell tour.
Yeah, no New York dates, by the way.
Leonard Skinner announced a farewell
Yes,
tour.
they did.
Okay. Kiss has been on like 80 farewell
Yes.
tours. Okay, the Rolling Stones will be on another farewell
They're
tour.
going to say farewell to farewell tours. That's what they're going to do.
That's what I'd probably call that tour. So yeah, no, I totally agree with you. But the number of bands that are announcing farewell tours this year is absolutely insane.
Insane. Number 10, you've watched more of the Winter Olympics than you thought you would.
I have. I know Matty definitely hasn't, even though he's probably lying. But the fact is, I actually enjoy watching the Winter Olympics. I'm not glued to the TV watching it, but there are some cool events. Like I like the snowboarding stuff. I like, you know, the luge and the speed skating. I'm really interested to see what hockey's going to bring because this is the first year that there are no NHL players, and I think USA is just going to get trounced anyway. But pretty much at this point, though, I mean, I do like to watch it. It's kind of just something to kind of pass the time. I'm not glued to it, but I've definitely watched it a lot more than I thought, and I actually have enjoyed it quite a bit.
To quote Hot Fuzz, Olympics, jog on.
Come on, you have to.
No, not a second. I won't watch a second, care less.
Not
Go
even
ahead. Go ahead. You decide medals based on some jackwagon sitting on the side looking for stuff. Go ahead. Figure out who wins a sporting event that way.
Looking for stuff? What are you talking about?
Judges. How can you have a sporting event that's judged? It makes no sense.
You have to judge it. How else do you get the medals?
But that's not a sport. That's
Yeah,
not
it
a
is.
sport. No, it's not.
It's X Games.
No, it's
but
not. It's nonsense and malarkey.
I mean, we kind of have the Winter Olympics all the time now with the X Games, right?
nonsense.
With that, Polar or Bipolar is officially over, and this episode of Polar Opposites is over. We'd like to thank everybody for watching us. Please check us out on Strong Island TV. We're also available as a podcast on TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spreaker.com, and iTunes. And follow us on Twitter at Polar Opposites 1. We are back live on Strong Island TV on Tuesday night, February 27th at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. Talking pretty much anything we could squeeze into. We'll get closer to the free agency. We'll do a little MLB and all that stuff. So again, one more time, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Spreaker.com, and iTunes. Also check out our past shows on Strong Island TV. And we are back live once again on this great station next Tuesday night, February 27th, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. Enjoy the week, enjoy the games, enjoy life, and we will talk again on February 27th on Strong Island TV.
Valentine's Day. Hey, Valentine's Day. Bye.